We've already said that global warming doesn't mean that it warms everywhere, but we can revisit it with the warming data from this place, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the United States of America, which is showing how much things have warmed up since 1994 to 2023. I'm recording this in June 2024, so the data is always a few months behind, and it shows what we said before many times, that there is an Arctic amplification or polar amplification with global warming. The snow ice albedo feedback is happening here. Snow melts, albedo decreases, more energy is retained and gets warmer, so it warms up rapidly, and so do the deserts because of some relation between warming atmosphere, humidity, and water vapor is a greenhouse gas, remember. And there are reasons why India is not warming as much. Sometimes it's pollution, and pollution can block the sunlight and create cooling, but this is not good because health could be getting very bad because of the pollution. And you know that in this region there is cooling because the winds are pushing the water towards Australia and New Guinea, so cold water is coming up. So with global warming, if the winds get stronger, then more cold water will come, so instead of warming it will cool down. So even though global warming is happening, it is cooling down here, and there are other reasons similar here why temperatures are cooling. And you already know why this is happening. We mentioned it in the Gulf Stream story, where we said Gulf Stream is bringing warm waters from the tropics into the Gulf of Mexico, between Florida and Cuba, and along here towards Europe. And you know London and Amsterdam have a mild weather compared to Toronto and New York at the same latitude because of that warm water. But we also said Greenland is melting and putting fresh water here, and the water is not getting heavy and sinking like before, or less water is sinking, which means not as much heat comes in to replace the sinking water, so it's not getting warm, and so on. Keep these in mind, and so on. We'll add stories. Global warming causes the earth to warm up even more. That might sound strange, but it's true. These are the vicious circles or the positive feedback. It's because of climate amplifiers. We already mentioned many times Arctic amplifier, polar amplification. You know about these already. The warming makes the ice melt, so the earth becomes less white and absorbs more heat, and so the ice melts all the more because temperatures get even more warm when you reduce the reflection. All these kinds of amplifiers play a nasty role in climate change. Here are a couple of more that we can look at. Think back to the cafe you sat outside with your mom and dad on that hot day on your vacation. Was it last year or the year before? Doesn't matter. Your mom and dad asked, "What do you want to drink?" "Soda." Now you said as soon as the waiter brought the order, you grabbed the bottle. You want to bet that the bottle was already completely wet at that point, and that was soon a puddle of water on the table where the bottle had been. The water comes from the air. It's invisible water vapor that's all around us. As soon as it gets cold on the bottle, the cold soda bottle, it condenses, for example, and the water vapor transforms into drops of water, and if you put it on the table, it's gonna just create a puddle of water. Okay, there is usually more water vapor in the warm air than in cold air. You already know this. This is why you see the puddle of water on the table more often in the summer than in the winter, and it's why water vapor is also a kind of climate amplifier. Water vapor holds on to heat just like CO2 and methane. It doesn't allow the thermal energy to go out of the earth into space. When it's warmer, more water evaporates, and there's more water vapor to hold on to the heat in the atmosphere. That makes it even warmer and even more water vapor ends up in the air, which also holds on to more heat, and so on and so on. So another vicious circle of warm atmosphere, more water vapor, more evaporation, more trapping of the thermal energy, and more warming. For another climate amplifier, we should visit outside the freezer in Russia. Two researchers, both wrapped up in warm, are walking across a frozen lake in Siberia in the east side of the country. Bubbles of various sizes can be seen in the ice. Using a metal bar, one of the researchers cuts into the bubble. The other holds up a lighter, and whoosh! A flame of at least a meter in height shoots up into the air. What happened? They know that it's methane, which burns very easily. It's the gas we use for cooking and so on. Heating. This develops when bacteria feed on the remains of dead plants and animals. There are plenty of these in the ground here. The ground is frozen with lots of organic matter from photosynthesis that the bacteria can eat and keep on producing methane. So you can see here little tornadoes of methane popping out, and there is a little elephant or a mammoth that got trapped in it, and there is a dead fish and dead leafy material that is getting digested by these bacteria and producing methane. The ground has been frozen here for at least 100,000 years, well into the last ice age. People who live in this region have a hard life. The top layer of the earth melts very briefly, but only in the summer. Plants and animals that die are frozen as soon as the long winter returns. Just like peat, PEAT, the material that is organic, that is compressed, they are preserved well because there is not much oxygen for bacteria to eat it up. That means they don't get the chance to start rotting. This has been going on for many thousands of years because these latitudes have remained cold, and millions of animals and plants are lying safely buried in the ice here, like fish sticks and spinach in the freezer. But when you turn off the freezer, the food starts to rot. Bacteria seize their chance and leave behind a nasty smell of rotten organic matter. That's what happens in Siberia too as it gets warmer. The frozen soil, called permafrost, thaws. The melted ice creates swamps and lakes because the water ice is melted into water puddles. In the soil, the bacteria have a nibble of the defrosting mammoths and the reindeer that have been preserved in ice. And now, as you know, where there is oxygen around, CO2 naturally develops from the consumption of organic matter, just like burning fossil fuel. And without oxygen, methane remains. The gases escape upward. Water of the lake blows bubbles like a jacuzzi. In the winter, these bubbles end up in the ice. When the ice melts or someone makes a hole in the ice, the gases disappear into the atmosphere, as you can see here. This thawing of the ground does not only take place in Siberia. In total, an area twice the size of Europe is frozen on Earth. There is a huge supply of carbon in the soil, buried for many centuries and many millennia, more than 4 times as much as combined in all the plants and trees that are now alive on top of the ground. Almost half of the frozen ground that is there is on the point of thawing. It's so warm now. This does not happen suddenly, but gradually. But methane and CO2 are released as it happens into the air, and they amplify the warming because they trap the thermal energy and they heat up the earth even more, which causes even more ice to thaw, and so that more methane and CO2 are released into the air, and so on and so on. So that's a real climate amplifier as well. Okay, all these things are to worry about. If you want to go on the web and search for a house that is sinking because the permafrost is thawing, then you will find it. Let me do that right here. Alaska house in permafrost thawing. So we'll find some figures. This is one here from Alaska Public Media. When we use these figures, we have to be careful because some of them you have to pay for, but I try to find free figures. If it will come up, for some reason it doesn't come up here. Why? Because the network is slow, or there is a truck going by making a lot of noise. So you can see this ground seems nice and solid, but this house is tilted over because this part of the house has sunk into the ground because permafrost has thawed and the soil has become mushy and gooey and it is sinking. And you can find another house here that is sunken as well, and people will be sitting there. If it is safe, they are allowed to stay. You can see this person here. There's people living there. Will be sitting and watching TV because it's not unstable yet, and it's not going to sink completely yet. You can also find roads that are broken because of this kind of a thing, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is not just a story, these are real things that are happening. We'll come back and look at what's happening to biology. Are there species that are actually dying away, or are there many that are on the brink? Are there things that are on the brink of collapse? It's called the tipping point that we mentioned before. A little bit of a push and they will go crashing away, and that's what we'll look at in the next podcast. Okay, come back, children.